Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters. It is home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker, Jeremy Baker, and Chaz Price. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. The website, arhq.com. How much money do you need to be happy? A new survey by Empower found that baby boomers feel like they need about $124,000 a year. Millennials, on the other hand, say they need more than $500,000 each year. But the poll also shows there's one thing that every generation agrees on. More than 70% of them say having a financial plan can help bring a sense of security. So have to ask, what do you see as an average of what people think and say and even find out they're going to need per month in retirement?
That's a really good question. I feel like the millennials just get hammered all the time. I mean, they're
Yeah.
$500,000.
pretty much.
It's a lot, though, yeah.
It's quite a bit of money, and I don't know. There's a lot of factors that could be influencing some of their perspectives and that that category and needing that much money. It could just be the fact that, which I've always thought is, I'm not a millennial, but just the economic climate that we came up in. Started investing in 2000, 2001, the tech wreck, the Y2K phenomenon. And then market was pretty good through some of our working years. And then 2008 and 9 happened again. And then we lose 40, 50% of our 401k and we, fire back up. And now we're facing COVID. And so, some of those folks maybe have just come into investing during some of their peak earnings years in the Great Recession, the COVID-19 pandemic. So that may be part of it. Cost of living, my wife and I recently got married and we're looking for housing. And I think I was listening on CNBC, reading some things. Housing prices have grown by almost 50% just in the last couple of years. So that is an expectation that I think that, they're projecting out into their future, needing, more expensive housing. Plus, they probably do have quite a bit of student debt. I know that's a big area that the current administration has tried to help to eliminate, is knocking some of the student debt down. And it could also then just be generational values that tend to value experiences and traveling and hobbies and over material possessions, where I sometimes think maybe the baby boomers, I think of Harley Davidson and cars and the big engines and big houses and things like that. So there's a lot of it that goes into it. But the beauty of working with a financial advisor, kind of dovetailing from the previous segment, is that whatever that retirement dream that you have is, which is different for everybody, but whatever that retirement dream that you have, it's really just a simple calculus. We back into how much you need based on what you plan to spend and what your other sources of income are. And I think personally, after having done this for almost 25 years, I think that people sometimes think they need more money than what they end up needing. And it's good to plan for more. But some of the observations that I see why people think they maybe need more money than what they do. The first one is that you're not going to spend exactly what you're spending now. And I don't just mean lifestyle. I mean, think about your FICA taxes, first and foremost. That's 7.5% that you're not getting of your check. Then we're talking about your 401k spend, maybe even some mortgage expenses or housing expenses, maybe even childcare. So just from the naked eye, at first blush, you hear and you Google and you see I need 10 times my salary or something like that, but to retire as far as a comfortable amount. But when you actually do the numbers, Nolan, I think that most people are going to be surprised at what their actual spending is going to look like. Especially if you plan on spending in different amounts throughout your retirement years. That would be one of the observations I'd see, is probably not going to need that much as what you think.
Yeah, I think you do a great job when we're in meetings and you're talking to people about what their average monthly income needs are. I'll use the word paycheck to paycheck, right? Now, we have heard probably on numerous different shows and articles about how the average American lives paycheck to paycheck. Now, what I mean by that is, not necessarily just living paycheck to paycheck, but they get used to the income that they have coming in. So again, they could be great savers, meaning they could be maxing out their 401k. They could be putting money in their Roth IRA. Maybe they have great cash value, but they have a paycheck that comes home after all of those savings are put aside. And that's the number, I think that's a starting point that somebody typically uses. So if you look at that, if that's the paycheck that you live on after you save money and put money away, cover all of your insurances and your other needs, that's kind of the amount of money that you could start with basing your plan out in the future. Because it's been my experience in working with hundreds of families over the course of 30 years is people get used to a lifestyle that they have. They're going to live the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. They're still going to go with their neighbors and go out to restaurants or take those bus trips or go do fun things together. They actually might have a couple of more opportunities to do that if they're not working the 9 to 5. So you could break that even further down into what you refer to as the go-go years, the slow go years, and the no-go years. So, in those early years of retirement, while you and maybe your spouse are healthy, you're going to take those trips that you wanted to do. Maybe you've had that bucket list item of taking the kids and grandkids to Disney World. Maybe it's the Viking River cruise, or maybe it's, watching just the grandkids and spending more time at their house. Those are the years that you're probably going to need, more money for fun stuff. And then my experience has been when my clients get in their 70s and 80s, they begin to slow down, They're typically having the kids come to them for the holidays. They're not traveling nearly as much, although they still might enjoy life. They're typically slowing down. And then, later in life, it's typically, not really having major spending as long as they have a solid healthcare plan in place that's designed to protect them from major healthcare expenses. So, those people who don't have a plan for things like long-term care can end up having major expenses and major monthly needs later in life during those no-go years if they don't have a plan in place. So you kind of want to break it down. And one of the great things that we can do here at America's Retirement Headquarters, if you don't know what your numbers are, and not only by sitting down with a professional like Chaz or Jeremy or myself, we can help you figure out what those numbers are. And in fact, we can use some software called Right Capital. And within Right Capital, what we can do is we can put in those numbers. We can do what I would refer to as a reverse the math to figure out, based upon where you're at today, what your savings rate looks like. What is a realistic number that you can have confidence with? I can think of a lady, she just recently got a hold of us, and Karen had lost her husband. And she just didn't have a clue because her husband oftentimes just managed the finances. Yet by going through the planning process, what we're able to show her is with, the sources of income that she had, with the investment accounts that she had, with the way that we were going to allocate it, what was a high probability of success if she lived off of this amount of income. And so that was able to help give her some confidence to be able to make a decision on how much of a monthly income not only is she going to need, but also is realistic within the plan. And the great thing I think about working with us is we're going to take that comprehensive approach of going in and looking at all of the numbers to help you, assess your current financial expenses, your living expenses, factor in things like inflation, consider your lifestyle. We look at things like health insurance and healthcare cost, or, what if tax rates go up in the future, identify some of those sources. And, something that you do, Jeremy, a lot of times is help with the gap. We'll see people make mistakes with their sources of income. For example, drawing Social Security early, which may not be the best approach because they need to bridge the gap from when they retire to, maybe when they go on Medicare, or maybe when they're, fully eligible for their max retirement benefits on Social Security. Even down to helping them adjust that plan is helping, ways to figure out how to figure out what their income needs are. Anything that you would say or pointers that you give when you're looking at how to figure out income needs in retirement?
Well, a couple of numbers stand out to me. Number one, if you talked about reversing the math, and for the millennials, that would mean having about $16 million in retirement savings, which probably is a little unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I see is kind of another number that stands out to me is it said 70% of those people would agree that having a financial plan would help them. Well, I don't know what the statistics are today, but I remember back when I started in the business, it was about 5% of Americans actually worked with a financial planner. And so I think if that number's at 70, which I probably don't think it is. That would be one way for you and the listening audience to get a hold of us and develop that financial plan. And then the last thing, I think a bit of a piece of advice is somebody told me a long time ago, it's not how much you make, it's how much you can save.
Pretty valuable. Also, how much you can keep in retirement. Tax is also a major factor. It's not one thing about the income. It's not about healthcare. It's not about taxes. It's how it all works together and how it can work against you if you don't account for one or the other. And that is why you get, that comprehensive retirement strategy when you work with the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. Again, the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates goes hand in hand, figuring it out, making sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted as you enter into retirement. Regardless of how much you're going to need or how much you think you're going to need. I'm going to say, as someone who is barely a millennial, I've never once thought I need $500,000 in my retirement. I mean, that would be great, but it really comes down to your personal circumstances and sitting down with the team. 419-794-3030 is the phone number to do that, to get started, or going on to the website, arhq.com.